gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Before I begin, there's something I really need to say. Thank you, Car Guy, for getting me into Mega Man! Seriously, I can trace my interest in Mega Man back to this guy's Top 50 Robot Masters countdown. Everything snowballed from there until I bought Mega Man 3 the day it was released on the 3DS Virtual Console. I loved it almost as soon as I started playing. It's one of the hardest games I've ever played, but despite my constant deaths, I never felt frustrated. I persevered through the tough learning curve, and with the help of Restore Points, I finally beat it. I enjoyed myself so much that I played through it a second time only a few days later, and after that, I bought Mega Man 2. I was officially hooked. One of my favorite things about Mega Man 3 is its Robot Masters. I loved every single one of them, and because of that, I decided to dedicate this countdown to them. I'll be judging them based on their design, level, fight, and weapon. In addition, I will not be including Proto Man on this list despite the fact that you battle him several times because he's a main character. Alright, now that the intro has been completed, it's time to get your weapons ready! You guys probably all saw this one coming. Top Man is one of those Robot Masters who is routinely bashed by Mega Man fans. And yeah, I can understand why they do that. Don't be fooled by the fact that he is the lowest spot on this list though. I actually like Top Man.
You gotta be kidding me!
No, Zero, I am not kidding. I did say that I loved all of Mega Man 3's Robot Masters after all. First, his design. While I find his sprite to be laughably derpy in appearance, I don't think it's a bad design. I'm kind of fond of his roller skate-like feet. A quick bit of research showed that he's equipped with an auto-balance system that gives him his spinning capabilities, but he can't spin for too long because maintaining such high speeds can damage his internal components as well as make him dizzy. His stage, while straightforward, is pretty interesting. The background seems to have a mix of organic and mechanical components, and there's quite a bit of enemy variety. There are Bolton Nuttons, top-spewing Kamasaburos, and a pair of robotic cats that attack you with yarn balls and robotic fleas? Creative. Top Man himself is very formulaic. He'll throw 3 tops at you, spin in place for a bit, and charge to the other side of the room. Rinse and repeat. He is invulnerable while spinning, but nonetheless, I find him to be the easiest Robot Master in the game. Now for the thing that Top Man gets bashed for the most, his weapon, the Top Spin. This move makes Mega Man perform a quick spin to attack nearby enemies. Now, Speedy Man 153 loves this thing, but I find it to be an awkward weapon at best. From what I've experienced, the hitbox is very small, so I almost always end up getting hurt while trying to use it. In addition, its ammo consumption is kind of weird. If it doesn't hit anything, it uses no energy, but if you use it while your invincibility frames are active, it can drain all of its energy. Still, it does make Shadow Man a piece of cake, so it's not totally useless. Now, it does sound like I've been giving old Toppy a hard time here, but even so, I just can't help but like him. And since I'm not sure how to end this segment effectively, here's a facepalm-worthy joke for you. Dropping in at number 7 is Mega Man 3's signature heavyweight, Hard Man. And I'm not kidding about the heavyweight part. Hardman's body is made of ceramic titanium, so he weighs nearly 3 tons. He isn't shy about throwing his weight around either. He likes sumo wrestling. His stage takes place in a mountainous region. Its main gimmick is these pipes containing guanons that try to bite you shortly after you step on them. In addition, there are Metuars, Hammer Joes, Monkings, and those stupidly annoying Have-Su bees. Near the end of the stage, Proto Man appears with his awesome whistle theme and challenges you to a battle. After that, there's only a room with a single Bicky in it before you face off with Hardman. Like Top Man, Hardman is very formulaic. He will fire 2 hard knuckles at you that boomerang back to him, and then he will launch himself into the air and attempt to crush you. Naturally, being hit by something as heavy as Hardman hurts a lot. He is so heavy, in fact, that he causes an earthquake that stuns Mega Man when he lands. After Hardman picks himself off the ground, the pattern repeats. Defeating him earns you the Hard Knuckle. While it is quite powerful, it takes a moment for it to get going after it's initially fired, so I don't find it to be very practical in most situations. However, it is required to break down certain walls in Wily's castle, so it does have uses. Overall, while Hardman isn't anything spectacular, he is still a solid robot master, both literally and figuratively, and I enjoy battling him every time he shows up. I don't know about you, but I have never liked needles. Fortunately, I don't have such an aversion to Needle Man. While his design is somewhat goofy, he is not one to be trifled with. The needles he fires are sharp enough to pierce a 10-inch brick, and the spikes on his head are mounted on a telescopic base that can be fired with a huge amount of power over short distances. His stage seems to take place in a city and makes decent use of the needle theme. Gimmicks here include hedgehog robots that curl up and shoot their quills in all directions, and large spikes that repeatedly extend and retract. There's also the usual enemy assortment like Joes and Nets. Ironically though, this stage has no instant death spikes. Funny how that works. Needle Man himself is a tricky boss. From what I've experienced, his pattern is mostly random, so he can be tough to defeat. He can jump high into the air and fire his needle cannon at you, jump across the room, or fire the spikes on his head a short distance in front of him. He's surprisingly fast for his size, so between dodging and shooting, you've got a fair and fun challenge. Once he's defeated, you'll earn the Needle Cannon. It's pretty generic. It enables you to shoot up to 3 needles in rapid succession by holding down the fire button. There are some enemies and bosses weak to it, but I find the Mega Buster tends to do the exact same job in most situations. So while he loses some points for his design and none too special weapon, Needle Man still has a great fight and a solid stage. By the way, did you know he likes sewing? I gotta respect a guy who sews as a hobby. I have no sewing talent whatsoever. Closing the bottom half of this countdown is the sentient robot spark plug, Sparkman. And oh, do I love that spark plug design. Originally created to charge electricity, Sparkman is a pair of high-voltage electrodes in place of hands, and he can produce twice as much voltage as Electman.
That's quite a feat.
Indeed it is, Zero. Moving on, Sparkman's stage is quite possibly the hardest of the main Robot Master stages in Mega Man 3. It contains numerous moving electric traps, chutes that spit out chunks of garbage, and platforms that will rise towards spike-covered ceilings after you step on them. The fight itself, while rather formulaic, is still fun. Sparkman will jump around the room a bit, and then stop in place before launching 8 small blasts of electricity all around him. Then, he will create one huge electric blast and hurl it at Mega Man. The arrangement of the room can make dodging the electricity and Sparkman himself tricky, but it's also a fun challenge. Sparkman's weapon, the Spark Shock, works a lot like the Ice Slasher from the first Mega Man game. It doesn't damage most enemies, rather it freezes them in place. It's pretty handy if you're trying to slip past a certain enemy, but otherwise I only use it against bosses. Now, you may be wondering why Electman's Thunder Beam is a much more devastating weapon when Sparkman can produce higher voltage. The reason is that Snakeman is better at focusing his power. But even though Sparkman's weapon is outclassed by his big brother, he still claims the number 5 spot on this list without any trouble at all. Snakes. Why'd it have to be snakes? Well, that's what I'd say if I were Indiana Jones. But since I'm not, I'm free to gush over Snakeman. The first robot master in the series to have an animal-themed design, Snakeman acts just like the creature he was based on. He's shrewd, persistent, and likes to corner his opponents before striking venomously. His stage takes the snake theme and goes overboard with it. Not only are there snakeheads as enemies and mini-bosses, but the walls and floors are also made of snakes. The only part that is lacking in snakes is the final stretch, which takes place in the sky and features cloud platforms and bomb flyers. And that music! The stage is one of my favorite music tracks in the game. As for the fight, Snakeman follows a simple pattern of running and jumping around the room, occasionally shooting a couple of search snakes that you'll have to dodge. The tricky part is the layout of the floor. You have to use it effectively in order to successfully jump over Snakeman. Upon defeating him, you'll earn the Search Snake. This weapon shoots out snakes that slither along the ground and up walls. I don't really use it much because I tend to find the Mega Buster superior in most situations, but there are a few times when it's useful. Snakeman also gains some major points for being the first robot master I fought and defeated. It took me a long time and many lost lives before I figured out his pattern, but when he finally went down, I felt like a boss. I couldn't wait to go on and defeat the rest of the robot masters, and even though some of them were a pain to face, I kept at it because I remembered how good it felt to defeat them. Thank you, Snakeman. I'll never forget what you taught me. At number 3 on this list, we have the ever-so-narcissistic Gemini Man. This robot not only has the ability to generate clones of himself, but one of his favorite things to do is admire himself in a mirror. He also has a hatred and fear of snakes, which explains his weakness to the Search Snake. Personality quirks aside, I do think he has a cool design. His stage is hands down my favorite in Mega Man 3. I'm amazed at how much variety the developers packed into a single level. You start off in this crystal-like world while UFOs and penguins attack you. Then, Proto Man appears and blows up a hatch, enabling you to proceed to this trippy, multicolored area full of eggs that release tadpoles when destroyed. There are also dragonflies, an aquatic area with fish that fire missiles, and some more penguins. When you reach Gemini Man, you'll create a clone of himself and begin running and jumping in a circular pattern around the room. He'll shoot at you only if you attack him, but I've found that if you time your shots just right, he won't fire at all. After losing half of his health, the clone breaks and Gemini Man will resort to running left and right while occasionally firing his Gemini laser. The laser bounces off the walls and causes a lot of slowdown, adding to the challenge. Defeating Gemini Man earns you the Gemini laser. It's kind of slow and you can't fire it again or change weapons until the attack dissipates, but it's reasonably powerful and its ability to bounce off walls can be handy at times. There is something I'm curious about though. Gemini Man's stage doesn't really seem to have much to do with the constellation. Does it perhaps take place in... Oh, wow. Thanks, Miss Fine Karma. Why don't we move on to the next segment? Alright, we've reached the top 2 and you can bet your Mega Busters that I'm excited. At the penultimate spot, we have Magnet Man. Naturally, this robot is based on a magnet and can utilize magnetic forces. While this is a very simple concept, I still like it a lot. His stage is also very fun. It starts out with flying magnet-carrying enemies, and then you have a fight with Proto Man. There are also giant springers, huge magnets that pull you in, and, everyone's favorite, disappearing block puzzles! Yay! Okay, don't freak out. While these disappearing blocks are annoying, they aren't as frustrating or unforgiving as the ones in some other Mega Man games. Finally, you'll face Magnet Man, and dang is he fun! He'll jump 3 times from one side of the room to the other, and then he'll either launch his homing magnet missiles or attempt to draw you in with his magnetic powers. Magnet Man is immune to all attacks while his magnetic field is up, and he's too high to shoot when he fires his magnet missiles, so your opportunities to attack are few and brief. This adds a level of frankness to the fight while keeping things fair. Magnet Man's weapon, the Magnet Missile, is one of my favorites. It gives Mega Man the ability to shoot a magnet that can change direction in order to hit enemies above or below you. It's pretty costly on ammo, but I find it to be a fair price because of how useful it is. Simply put, Magnet Man is an ideal robot master, a fun stage, awesome weapon, and great fight. But as much as I like him, there is still one robot master in Mega Man 3 that I think is better. And that is... By process of elimination, you probably already figured out who number 1 is. So, Shadow Man. I'm sorry. I know this is an obvious choice, but there was just no way I could put Shadow Man any lower than number 1. He's just so awesome, and for so many reasons. First, we have his design. He's a freaking robot ninja, and dang does he look intimidating when holding that giant shuriken. He was originally an unknown, deactivated robot that Dr. Wily found, remodeled, and reprogrammed, and since his metal body doesn't match any material found on Earth, it's likely that he's alien in origin. Next is his stage, which, fittingly enough, is very tricky. Shadow Man loves to surprise others, so the enemies are placed in such a way that they act like traps. There's also a battle with Proto Man early on, machines that hide the terrain, and a final section containing small platforms over a huge lake of lava. Finally, you'll face Shadow Man himself, and if you don't use the top spin, this is a very challenging battle. Shadow Man constantly jumps around as he chases Mega Man, and after a few jumps, he will either slide along the ground or throw 3 of his Shadow Blades. What makes this fight so difficult is that Shadow Man's pattern is unpredictable. There is no way to tell how high he will jump or whether he will slide or use his Shadow Blades, so you have to have the reflexes of a ninja to stand a chance. I spent an entire hour using restore points and fighting him over and over before I finally defeated him using only the Mega Buster and without energy tanks. And I felt so awesome afterwards. But one of the coolest things about Shadow Man is his weapon, the Shadow Blade. This is basically the metal blade done right. It enables you to throw a shuriken in one of 5 directions. While it has a relatively short range, it is decently powerful and uses very little ammo. I find myself using this thing a lot, especially if there are enemies hanging out above me. Remember when I said Magnet Man was an ideal robot master? Well, Shadow Man not only fits those criteria, he goes above and beyond them. Despite how challenging he is, I always fight him with only the Mega Buster during the first encounter because defeating him is so satisfying. He's a robot master that exemplifies what a Mega Man boss should be, and that's why he's number 1 on this list.
I'm the Polar Star. Capcom, stop being so mean for Mega!